What's going on, guys? It's Goose from the Wise Wealth Discord here with another Sunday watch list. Wanted to go over a pattern, a typical stock market chart pattern that you see. I know last week I went over what a cup and handle is. I don't know if it exactly played out on AMD. We had interesting earnings with Nvidia though, and ended up ripsawing the market up and down quite drastically. I banked on both sides. It was a beautiful thing. You had the calls that I was expecting for the market run up leading up to the earnings, and then once it came up to the 373 line, that's where the head and shoulders started forming. So that's kind of why I wanted to go over it today. As you can see, head and shoulders market pattern is usually a shoulder. You have a head, goes above the shoulder. You have a left shoulder, a right shoulder, and a head. And it could be inverse too. So right here is an inverse one where it comes down, makes a left shoulder, makes a head, makes a right shoulder, and then there's a neckline. Same thing that's kind of forming right here on the bearish side of things, left, head, right, and then the neckline. The neckline is the support that it has to break through to give you more confluence. As you can see, they have some bullish ones up here too, where it's like you have the left shoulder, the head, the right shoulder. That one's a little blurry, but there's an inverse head and shoulders too, so it could play out both ways, and you start to see a little bit more chart patterns as you go along. But it really does matter what time frame you see it on as well. As always, I'm going to start with the SPY. This is the 1 hour that looks kind of clean. I believe I had it on the 4 hour as well. So as you can see, we're still kind of pulling down a little bit. There hasn't been a clear uptrend yet. But last week we were right about here. And that's when I was thinking an uptrend could start to try and form this right shoulder. And as you can see, there's a left shoulder right here. Let me, is that the curve? Oh, here it is. So you got the curve here. That's what I like to use for the left shoulder, or the head and shoulders pattern, just to identify it a little better. You got the head right here, and then you have the right shoulder right here. So it's not guaranteed that it's going to play out this way. The Bulls still defended that line yesterday or on Friday when the Jackson Hole event did happen, which is kind of expected. It's usually a pretty bullish thing. The neckline would be somewhere around here. So if price action does come below here, then you can start to get that follow through that I had. Is like it has to break below this neckline. You have the left, you have the right, you have the head, but the most important part is the follow through of breaking through the neckline. If that doesn't happen, then that could be a pretty bullish thing if the bulls, decide to start taking it up around 432, 430 area. Right now, it seems like it's heading towards there. The ultimate trend that the bulls have been having, I mean, this is from March. So since March, it hasn't broken through, and it finally did. And the reason that I started buying puts after the Nvidia earnings is it was right at the 444 line that I was looking at, because that would have been the same resistance as this left shoulder, and that would have started playing out. So I banked quite a bit of money on shorts here, because after you break an ultimate trend that they've been having, typically that's going to be the new resistance. And once it opened at that price point, I thought that was a pretty good RR risk to reward ratio to open shorts there. The market could have kept going. You got to humble yourself and know you don't know exactly where it's going, but you have some good chart patterns to show you. And when you see that this used to be, bounce, this is support that it's had for the last few months since March. And after it broke through, you usually expect a retest of it, and that's exactly what it did. Is it went up, retested it, and then it happened to form this right shoulder. Like I said, you have to wait to see what happens if it does come back down to 433. You have to wait to see if it does break through for that trend, for that neckline to be broken. If it does, I could see the next support being around 420, maybe a 430 area, where you see these consolidations happening. As you could open it up a little bit on the weekly, and it doesn't look quite as much of a head and shoulders, but you still see a pretty strong resistance on the thing that used to be support. So that's kind of scary. I think it was the daily where you see that bearish engulfing happen, and that's where we picked up shorts right at that level at 444. The indices, I mean, they got smoked after Nvidia earnings. They gapped up to 444, and that was resistance. So obviously, people were selling off pretty hard. And then you could see with this wick that during the Jackson hole, we did get a little bit lower. The lowest of the week was 435, it looks like. But the bulls started to eat that up, and we ended up green for the day on the spies and the Qs. But on the daily, you could see the head and shoulders forming. It's like you still need confirmation and confluence that it goes below the 433 mark before you turn bearish. But that's kind of where I'm leaning. I'm not going to lie, I do have shorts in the SPY and the Q right now for the end of September. Seasonally, it's usually a pretty weak uh, moment for the stocks. August and September are typically pretty weak and sell off and do gap ups and stuff to that nature. Move on to the Qs. Big Tech. This is the Big Tech ETF. They have the same kind of thing forming, and that's why I shorted when Nvidia came out with earnings and they were up there. I shorted them because I had my technical analysis. I had my lines drawn out, and I was when I was calling it out last week, I was waiting for a bounce up to 373, and that's about what we got, 372.90. It opened up at, and you enter shorts, expecting the right shoulder to be formed, and that's exactly what happened. There was interesting thing though on the Qs, they have a strong support right here, and during the Jackson Hole event, they came down to this point, and that's when they started buying. So that's the one thing that could invalidate the head and shoulders is if this is the new support, they could be bouncing up to go retest the 373 area, and we could stay within this range. You can't be too biased to think just because you start to see a pattern forming, it's going to play out exactly. That's why we wait to see if the neckline comes down and plays out. It looks like we have futes open a little bit. I don't think anything too crazy is going on. 0.12 right now for NASDAQ futures, and then we got the S&P 500, 0.10. Nothing too crazy. Looks kind of bullish, actually. You could see kind of a bull flag going on right here. Boom. Boom. Oh, deleted that on accident. Just draw that up really quick. Little flag right there. If that could break out, maybe they'll have a good jump at the start. We'll see. Typical resistance though on the futures would be this big old green line that I had. It was wedging for a while, it broke out. Now it's still kind of the same areas of resistance. It needs to get over 44.71 to really start to get bullish. Maybe even this previous high, 44.86. Just to make sure it doesn't form a double top and come flying down again. We're still kind of in correction mode, it seems. I think right now I need to check. I think it's about 6 or 7% we are down from the high that we had this year. Oh, only 4.79. We did reach the 5% level right about here, which is typically a decent correction, but we have had more than 20% gains, and I think it's like over 60% of the time you have more. You have about a 10% drawdown when you do have a 20% gain in the stock market. So I think a lot of people are kind of waiting to see if we do continue to go down. There's still a strong support here at 433 on the SPY, and then we have 358 area that looks like a strong support for the Qs. So we'll see if the bears could break through this week. I don't think there's any like crazy news or anything like that. We're just about wrapping up earnings seasons. Most of the big boys are kind of out of the way. You got the dollar. It did continue to creep up as things were getting a little bit ugly in the market. It's a pretty strong trend, but as you can see, it's kind of getting to that overextended side, which is kind of scary when you have, I do have a short position on the market right now. So the dollar coming back down and, possibly retesting this trend line would probably help the bulls case a little bit more this week. I don't have the 10-year yields and stuff, but those are a big thing as well, the dollar and the yields. Here I have the Magnificent Seven. These are the big tech stocks that lead the way. As Jimmy said in the market, can't remember exactly when he said it, but he said it reminds him of March, I believe he was saying, is that when no, not there, where the market is led by big tech stocks. I can't find where he said it. No. Oh, somewhere around here. As you can see there, he said we formed a nice little inverse head and shoulders. Now you guys kind of know what a head and shoulders is, and that was from Friday's close. And what ended up happening, it ended up, getting shot up until Wednesday, Thursday in the Nvidia earnings, as we were preaching. I can't remember where he said it. He said somewhere where it reminded him of big tech leading the way. And big tech, when he says big tech, it's Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Tesla, Google or Meta, Google, Amazon. Those are the big seven tech stocks that are just juggernauts. They don't typically they lead the way when it comes to the Qs. When we're watching the Qs, it's like these seven stocks right here are huge. So I drew up a little bit of analysis for them. I haven't really done much this weekend as far as like looking at the market, but go over it with you guys. Microsoft, we still have the 4 hour holding on pretty nicely to this. This previous support looks like it's a new resistance. It could come back up to test that again, like the 327 area. But if knocked down, I fully expect it to hold 317, 320 area. If it is giving up this previous low, though, that's a pretty big thing because this ultimate trend line that it has going, that it's inching up on, it could get smoked even more. So that's why it's big to see if some of these stocks continue to go. This is Nvidia. They had the huge earnings, as you can see, they were all the way up at the 500 area, and they sold off pretty drastically, and that's kind of what brought the whole Qs down with that right shoulder that's forming. I still see you could get rid of these lines possibly, and you could start to see the little uptrend that it does have going here. Because this is the 4 hours, so this is a pretty drastic amount of time. But I'll break it down to the 15 for you guys. It's almost like a megaphone pattern. I don't know if you guys know exactly what a megaphone pattern is. Megaphone stock market pattern, but show you guys kind of the basic idea. It can be a bullish thing. It could be a bearish thing. Um, there's the bullish megaphone. It's where it gets bigger, and the outside is kind of like a megaphone. How it starts small and then it continues to get bigger. It's like it's small little things, and now it's got like this wider pattern towards the end. But I'm assuming it's just going to keep creeping up. It's Nvidia. They killed earnings. They're going to continue to keep growing based off their AI hype and stuff. It seems like this gap is still very, very big, but you can't play based strictly off gaps. You have to see that this is a strong support that they have. And I don't think the Bulls now are trying to give up on like the 400 level. You could see they like holding it right around there. So it's a good support level. If it does break out of the megaphone pattern, I'll be able to tell you guys in the Discord per usual. I don't know what this is. I think that's my thumbnail. Sorry, I got distracted. So it's holding up pretty well. If the Bulls do come out, Monday, who knows? This week could be a ripper because a lot of these things are at support. I just don't see very oversold levels, and I do like the head and shoulders on the indices that they're showing. So that's kind of why I got bearish towards the end. You have Tesla here, one of the big tech stocks as well. I was pointing out that it was getting close to this ultimate trend line, and it did bounce. I think it had close to a 10% week, which is pretty significant. Yeah, 12%. That's a pretty good week. I mean, off that bounce right there, you had the confluence of it being oversold. You had the trend line ultimately right here. So it was a good call out. If anybody did play calls, I think I did have calls at the start of the week, closed them, and then I ended up shorting when Nvidia dropped their earnings. So you start to see a little bit of a resistance here. But now you can start to see, I bet, like on the 1 hour, it's probably closer to a W shape, which is pretty bullish thing, but it does have to break through this neckline right here. Is I think I used the path. So you got boom, 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 boom. The W's are big, but you gotta have confluence with this. Oh, with this follow through, you gotta have it break through this previous high of like 240. If Tesla could work its way up there, I mean that's a pretty bullish sign that it could continue to go. I don't know exactly what. Maybe the next resistance would be around 250. That's just kind of throwing out a random number in a way, but it's got a double bottom. It's at almost a triple top. It's just got to break through and see what happens. If it does get denied, I could see it possibly just ranging and holding this range. If not, and the bears push it below 230, maybe retest the trend line again at 220. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. You got Meta. You got another possible W shape that's happening over here. Yeah, boom, 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 and then it's unknown. It's sitting right here, but same thing is like you got to have it come through this neckline right here, and this is ultimately where the trend is being. It was supported for a while. Let me back up to the 4 hour. The trend was right here. Trend is your friend. You want to follow that, but until broken, once it was broken, this is where I started entering shorts. It's because Nvidia earnings came out and the Qs were looking weak, and it looked like they possibly lost that support that they had. That's now resistance. So we'll just have to see. Meta does kind of look. A lot of these stocks are starting to look a little bit more bullish now that I'm looking at them. I'm in short positions, but I do think these resistances are going to play a part throughout the week. Is once they get back up here, what do? Are they breaking out above, just like Tesla? Are they going to continue to break out above, or are they going to get denied and come right back down? We have to wait and see. That's the exciting part. Google. Jimmy had posted this in the watch list. I know this was under technical analysis. He had a nice little pattern form. That's AMD. This is Google. He said they were showing tremendous strength compared to all the other tech stocks that were getting smoked. It did end up coming back down, as you can see. It was a false breakout, but those things do happen in the market. They give you a little head fake. This is kind of what he had drawn up there. Is it had that breakout right here. It tried to hold, as you can see, this candle right here. It has a wick right there trying to hold it, and it just lost it. It came all the way back down. So we'll have to see. We'll keep an eye on it. I'm sure Jimmy and I will keep you posted if it does break out again, per usual. But it's kind of what you see on Google. There is a big gap below to fill, so if it does break out of this, that's another big thing to note, is that there's a big gap right there. Very bullish. As you can see in all of these, they all had their 2022 lows, and then since 2023 started, I mean, this is the Magnificent Seven. That's just holding on and creeping up. Can't be stopped. Amazon on the 4 hour, they look pretty decent. 15, they look decent because they're holding their ultimate trend line that they have going up, unlike Meta and some of the other stocks like Apple. I didn't go over Apple actually. It's just kind of wonky. Can't really read much off of it. I don't honestly trade too many options on Apple. I do Tesla, Meta, Nvidia. Like, there's not many like options that I play on Apple. It's usually just a buy the dip type thing. I haven't bought any more that I have now. I'm honestly leaning a little bit more bearish on the market. I don't think there's a lot of good macro environments happening right now, but just have to wait and see. But Amazon, we're back again, kind of trying to test this trend line, see if it could hold it. It looks like it did lose sight of it after Nvidia earnings, but it creeped its way back up in there. So that's good for Amazon long-term holders and bulls and stuff like that. It's never something you want to see as a stock like this just continuing to drop. I mean, if you're in short positions, cool, but until technical analysis tells you, to hop in short positions, you typically don't want to be shorting, major stocks like that. For the short term, sure, but long term, 6, 7 months of time, I mean, that's a pretty big gamble on some of these juggernauts. They just make a bunch of money. So that's the tech sector. I do usually like to go into a little bit more um, individual stocks, I suppose. DraftKings, they're still looking a little bit weak. You could kind of see a little bear flag here in a way where it has the big old pole, and then you got the flag right here. Pole, flag. So if it can't hold this trend line and it does break out below this flag, I could see a little bit more downside. But they are on a pretty significant run right now from $10 up to 28. So that's, as you can see, that it's 100+% that it's been moving up. So who knows? Maybe there is a little bit more downside to go. That's kind of where I'm leaning. I'm thinking we could possibly get a little dead cat bounce to start the week, and then the bears will come out at some of these important trend lines that are coming on the Qs and the SPY, and then knock it right back down, and maybe we'll see if the head and shoulders plays out. That almost looks like a bear flag. You got Boeing that I've been trying to play. Honestly, they're looking pretty bullish because if you extend this out a little bit, this was their resistance that turned into support. They came back down here, and the bulls started buying that up. They have a gap right above that they're looking to fill, about 227 area. So Monday and Tuesday could treat some people nice on the bull side. We'll see. Do have shorts, so now I'm starting to get a little scared now that I'm going over the charts. I was just seeing the head and shoulders and then dicey. It's like, oh, that looks like a good play. Yeah, Netflix, they're holding their range. They kind of relatively have a head and shoulders. That's what Jimmy was playing, I think a couple weeks ago. Is it started breaking down below the 413, 415 support area, and it got smoked. He made a decent amount of money, but as you can see, the bulls started buying that up. They don't want to, the neckline to be too broken and then come back down. So we're ranging in Netflix. I'll be sure to let you know if it does break below, but you have this ultimate trend. I mean, they're not really going anywhere anytime soon. This is a huge resistance right here at the 450 line, though. So I wouldn't be if it comes down here, you could buy calls, but I wouldn't buy anything too out of the money that's above 446, 450, because huge resistance. As you can see, resistance turned into support. Now it's resistance again because they got smoked on some earnings last. It was 2022. It was a while ago, but they're still on an uptrend. Still bullish for the longer term outlook of stocks. So that's why the bulls still do have a case. It's just the bears getting their little correction in after a huge run up. As you can see, they have their support that they're holding. It was previous support. Right here is resistance. Made it support. Made it support. Now they came back down. Resistance. Broke above. Support. So they have a huge gap fill below, so they're obviously not trying to let that go. They did for a little bit, but they brought it right back up. So if Shopify is broken down to the 54.90 level, there's still a huge gap below. We'll just have to wait and see. As you can see, when I was starting to say to buy calls, it was oversold. It bounced and it kept going. And it's like a lot of these last week on Sunday, I was telling you guys, these are very, very oversold stocks. Expect to bounce, and that's exactly what we got leading up to NVIDIA earnings, and we banked. So this is why I like to go over with you guys what I'm starting to look at, where they're at. ARC didn't really do much. I mean, it did hit this trend line that I was talking about, or it was. It bounced from that point. NVIDIA earnings smoked it, and we're just have to wait and see. I mean, until this trend line's broken, I don't really see a point shorting it, but they had a decent W shape, as you could see with some of the other stocks I was showing you earlier. The W, pretty bullish thing, but you have to break above the previous high, and that didn't happen. And as you can see, it's got smoked again. But now it looks like it's trying to form a decent uptrend, so maybe we'll see if it can go create a newer high. Higher highs, higher lows, that's what you consider an uptrend. Higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and see if it can go back up there and create that higher high. Baba, I don't think they really had that great of a week. They might have had a couple percents, but they are kind of holding this ultimate trend line. This trend line is being a little bit nice to them too, because I used to have it backed up or pushed up to about here, So they're kind of in this range where they're trying to hold it, but we have yet to see. And China's, I mean, their economy is honestly kind of collapsing. It's something like 70 or 80% of their wealth is all tied up in real estate. And some of their biggest real estate, like banks out there, are collapsing. They're just not able to pay their funds and stuff. So it's getting kind of ugly, which could eventually lead over to the U.S. if we start to have bad macros. AMD, they were a huge play with the NVIDIA shorts that I had in the market. So you could see it gapped up to like the 111 area and it promptly sold off. I mean, that was a huge move. It went from 111 all the way to $100, literally in a day. But now it's looking a little bit more bearish because it had this nice cup and handle that I was showing you guys last week. And now that it lost this support, that's kind of scary. And it looks like it's a new resistance. As you can see, the wick tried, they tried, and it's just getting denied now at that point. So if AMD doesn't pick it up, it could be a pretty nasty short breaking out of this longer trend line that it had. So we'll just have to wait and see. That's typically how I'm looking at the market. I'm not too biased. Like I said, I do have shorts in the market due to the head and shoulders that I see on the indices, but I could get smoked. I mean, this could have been the support that the Bulls needed to bring it back up, and we'll have to wait and see if it does get up to the 373 area. As always, you want to, you know, continue to manage your risk and make sure everything's going according to plan when you do trade it. Just because I'm in shorts doesn't mean that I'm gonna win. I could continue to get smoked, but I need to I need to manage my risk, get out of the position, and then wait for these other trend lines that are coming on the spies and the Qs. But I'll see you guys Monday. I'll be sure to message something in there, and I hope you guys have